We're going to be in John chapter 15 today. We're going to be in verses 1 through 17, so it's going to be a little bit of a smaller chunk today than we have been doing. But there's a lot going on here, a great analogy, a lot of just great things to talk about. So I'm going to try to take our time going through it and parsing out some of this stuff. So with that, if you would just bow your heads in prayer with me. Lord Jesus, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the sunshine and the green grass and just that summer is here and it's beautiful outside, Lord. But I also thank you that we can gather here and worship you and learn about you and just fellowship. And so, Lord, I pray for all those things, that our worship is focused on you, that our learning is focused on you, and that our fellowship is focused on you, Lord. So I pray that is where our hearts are at, where my heart is at, where all of our hearts is at, Lord. And so I just pray for the rest of the day, Lord, that you would guide this teaching from me and that you would give what you want them to know and keep me from saying what you don't want them to hear, Lord. Keep my words out and keep your words in, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. So, this is kind of a classic passage. Some of you may have heard. It's the passage with the vine, and Jesus talking about being the vine, being the true vine. And there's a lot of great symbolism and depth I think we can pull from this. So I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. We're just going to start with the first 4 verses, and we're going to go through that. All right. So Jesus says, well, okay, let me give a little context. Jesus is in this really long talk with his disciples before he goes and gets crucified. Last time I preached, it was on 13, and he was washing his disciples' feet, and this was after a meal, and so this is all probably the same story. Jesus is with his disciples, and this is the last time before he goes and dies. Not the last time ever, because he'll come back to life, but they don't know that. They don't know that he's going to get resurrected, even though he keeps trying to tell them. So these are the last words he's imparting to them before he departs. And then of course he comes back and he expounds and he's with them for a few more days and teaches them more. But there's a lot that Jesus is trying to give to them through chapter 14 through all the way up to 17. He's telling them a lot, teaching them a lot. And so I think these last teachings are really crucial. All of Jesus' teachings are crucial, but these are really important. These are the final things he wants them to know. So let's look at verses 1 through 4. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. So, what I like about this analogy, it's kind of self-explanatory. There's a lot of depth to it, but it means what it means. Jesus says it pretty plainly. He is the true vine. And I've never actually looked at a grapevine, and I got a little bit of a picture up there. It's not a full picture of a grapevine, but I'd never actually thought of what does a vine look like. And in my mind, it's always in old cartoons, that kind of green thing that's hanging from the sky that they somehow grab and swing across a cavern or something like that. Or in Indiana Jones, when he's swinging across things, he grabs a vine. And I never thought vines as really big or thick things, but when you look at a picture of a grapevine, they're thick, they're big. You couldn't wrap your 2 hands around them. They're pretty sturdy looking, they're little trees almost. So that's what Jesus is trying to tell him. He's that vine. And for Israel at this time, this is actually a really big analogy. This is a symbolism that gets used a few times in the Old Testament, and around this time seemed to be really prominent in Israel. That even the temple had kind of golden vines that were crafted to decorate it. And so vines were a prominent symbol in Israel at this time. And when we look at the Old Testament, though, the usage of the vine is a little different than how Jesus is using it here. In the Old Testament, Israel is told to be the vine. And they're called out as that, and that God is their vine dresser, that he is the one who comes and takes care of them. And they're supposed to be the vine, but look at what you're bearing. It says, you're the vine, but you bear wild grapes. And I always wondered what wild grapes meant. I'm like, I just think of grapes in the wild. But the word that they're actually trying to get across is that they're worthless grapes, that they're useless grapes, that they have a foul odor, that these grapes you don't want to be around. They smell bad. So that's some of the symbolism that his disciples would have known, that they were the vine and that they should be bearing fruit, because Israel in the past had not been bearing fruit, had been bearing useless fruit. But now Jesus kind of changes it. Jesus pulls it away from Israel and he says, I am the vine and we are the branches. So I don't know how Israel exactly thought of it. Was the kingdom of Israel, were they the vine and every person in Israel were the branches? I don't know how they kind of broke that analogy down. But now Jesus is saying, no, I'm the vine. I'm the one that you live off of. And you are the branches. And he says that very plainly. He says that the Father is the vine dresser. So the Father is the one who comes and takes away branches that aren't doing anything. The Father is the one who prunes, who keeps the vine alive, who treats it. And he says, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. So, and he'll get into this more about not bearing fruit and being taken away, but he's saying it plainly there. The ones that don't bear fruit are taken away. And the analogy there is, the ones that are a part of this and aren't contributing to the Christian life, they're hurting the vine. They're actually useless. They're not providing life to the vine. And in some cases, they can be hurting the vine and causing it and making it so that other branches can't grow and can't bear fruit. So for the good of the vine, for the good of the health, they're taken away. But the ones that do bear fruit, they don't just sit there like, oh, you've borne fruit. That's great. All right, we'll leave that branch be. No, they get pruned. And that word pruned, I decided to try to look into it. You know, I like to look into the different Greek words sometimes and like, oh, what is the meaning behind this? And so I looked into the word prune, and it means prune. There's not much depth to this word in Greek. It's just the word for taking away, for cutting something away. And so in this context, it would mean pruning. But pruning is something that vine dressers do to help the health of the vine, to make it so branches can grow, more fruit and to bear more fruit and to be healthier. But it also doesn't sound like a fun process. It's a process of cutting things away. And I heard what one pastor describe, if trees could talk, what would they say while they're getting pruned? Would they not be saying, ow, that hurts. Stop that. That's sharp. It possibly, pruning hurts, yet pruning bears fruit. And I'm sure some of us have been through that process. While we're walking with Christ, it's not all just, oh, you're good, go ahead. Jesus doesn't say you're good, you can just walk and you're being faithful now. No, there's a pruning process. There's things in our lives that need to be cut off, that need to be shaped, and that can be painful. And I can think of a few just in my early years of being a believer and in high school, some things that I went through that, looking back, when I think about them, they're still painful. Yet the fruit that they've bared or borne, I can see now. I can actually be receiving now. So the fruit from then, I'm actually a part of. And I don't regret it. It's never fun to go through, but it's not bad. It's just uncomfortable. And so now in verse 3, he says, already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. Verse 3, I think, is kind of a callback to chapter 13. In 13, he says, you are already clean. I just need to wash your feet. He's washing their feet. And Peter says, don't wash my feet. And he's like, well, if I don't wash your feet, you have no part in me. So then Peter says, wash all of me. And Jesus says, no, you're clean. You just need to wash your feet. And again, that's another analogy. We are clean. Jesus has made us clean, yet we are still in the world of sin. Yet our feet still get dirty when walking on a dusty road. So he says, you're clean because of my words. So now abide in me, and I in you. It's not just you abide in me, cling on to me. What does that word abide mean? It means to remain somewhere, to hold on to something, or to be held, to be kept. It does not involve moving, does not involve, I'll go here and then I'll go there. No, abide means to stay put. And so Jesus doesn't just say, you remain in me and we'll call it good. He says, you remain in me and I will remain in you. This is a relationship. It takes two of us. I'm going to stay with you if you stay with me. And it's a continuous thing. This word abide means to continue. It doesn't mean you just remain once and then you're good. It means you are continuously remaining, continuously being held, continuously staying with Jesus. And so he says, if you do that, if you abide in me and I in you, because the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. What branch can bear fruit by itself? If a branch is cut off from, if these grape branches, think of a grape branch. There's when I was just thinking about this when we were getting grapes from the store, or Allie brought grapes home from the store, and those branches are small. Those branches are very tiny compared to the vine. Yet, whenever I try to break off a part of a thing of grapes to get a bundle, I can never get it to break off. I'm twisting it, and I'm turning, and I'm pulling, and it just won't break. And all of a sudden, I've got the grapes, and they've spilled all over. But they don't break easy. Yet, they're not bearing any more fruit. When you cut those branches off from the vine, they have all this fruit on them, but they're not going to bear any more fruit. You can't just get a bag of grapes from the store and say, oh, I'm good, it'll just keep growing me more fruit. No, it's done. What the fruit that is there is all that remains. So if we try to not be connected to the vine, how are we supposed to bear fruit? I think Jesus is just trying to kind of make a logical point. It's just you can't bear fruit if you're not connected to the vine. And so he's trying to tell his disciples, if you're not connected to me, if you are not abiding in me, you cannot bear fruit. It's impossible. Because the vine is the one that nurtures us and nourishes us and allows the branches to grow those grapes. It's only because of the vine. And yet the vine wants the branches to be a part of it. Jesus doesn't want us to be cut off, doesn't want us to not be connected to him. Let's look at verses 5 through 8. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. So again, Jesus is kind of just repeating this point. He doesn't really say a ton different in verse 5. He says, I am the vine. What did he say in verse 1? He said, I am the true vine. So again, he said, I am the vine. Remember this. Sometimes I wonder if Paul got his writing style from Jesus, because Jesus does a lot of repeating, and Paul does a lot of repeating. And it gets a little wordy sometimes, and I always stumble over the sentences. But it's so easy to forget. And so obviously Jesus wants to repeat this, wants to drive this point home, because it's so easy to forget. He is the vine. We are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, again, 2, if we abide in him and he will abide in us, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. We can't do anything apart from Jesus. And that's a lesson I think I'm still learning to this day. Is there are times when I think I can do this without Jesus. I don't even realize I'm not doing it. I'm doing it without Jesus. I can take for granted this relationship that if I'm abiding in him, he'll abide in me. I forget the abiding part. It's like any kind of friendship. You don't really maintain a friendship by not talking to a friend for years on end, and then you see them, you say, oh, we've been best friends our whole life. That friend is probably, well, you haven't talked to me in 3 years. I don't know what's going on in your life. Yet that past relationship doesn't just disappear. Our past relationship with Jesus doesn't just disappear. I know friends that I haven't seen in a long time, and when I run into them again, we kind of pick up where we left off. It's like we haven't, it's only been, moments since we've seen each other, but it's actually been years. So the relationship we have with Jesus doesn't disappear, yet if we forget about it, if we forget to abide in him, then he's not going to abide in us. It's just it's not because he's like, oh, I won't abide in you because you're not talking to me. He's like, it won't happen because we're not in relationship together. And he says, if anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. And that's kind of a scary thing to read, I think. Yet, I think Jesus is just pointing out, again, that's what will happen. What does a vine dresser do when he comes through and he prunes and he finds branches that have withered and died? He cuts them off for the health of the vine. And they're thrown into the fire. Yet that doesn't mean we are, on the verge of withering or dying. It's a bit more of a process. It's not just a single day that you wither and die. It takes a long time of remaining away from Jesus, to the heart of hearts and the hardening of minds and that kind of imagery that Jesus and Paul talk about. Yet that is what will happen. If anyone does not abide in me, they will be thrown into the fire. And I think for me, whenever I read that, that's sombering. That's heavy. Yet that's not the only thing that'll happen, because we can abide in Jesus. We can bear fruit. We can be a part of this salvation. And it's not just on us. Again, but abiding isn't really an action. Abiding, that word, isn't, oh, you go, to this place and then this place and then this place. No, it's remain in Jesus. It's kind of a almost being passive. And so Jesus is a part of this process. Jesus is a part of giving us life. Jesus is a part of us bearing fruit. And I was, Rod was just sharing with me the other day about what he had learned a couple years back about when vine dressers come through and prune their vines. Vines grew across wires like they do today. Like we have a lot of things that we put around these vines for them to grow up and to kind of wrap around and be supported. And so some of these branches, what they would do to support them, they put rocks under them to support them, to help them grow, to help them become healthy. So if there's a branch that's that's dying, that's withering, the vine dresser's first instinct is, I need to cut it off. The vine dresser wants to help it, wants to grow, wants to give it life. God wants to help us grow, wants to help us give life, or to give us life. He doesn't just want to cut us off the moment he sees that we're withering, the moment that he sees we're dying a little bit, the moment that we're not abiding in Jesus. God's first instinct isn't, well, cut him off. It's like, no, I want you to grow. I want you to bear fruit. And that's what's so amazing about it. That's what's so beautiful about this image. It's serious. There is a reality of what will happen, yet God doesn't want that to happen. God wants us to grow and wants us to abide in him. And so if we abide in Jesus, if you abide in me, verse 7, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. And there's an interesting way Jesus kind of rephrases it. Originally he was saying, you abide in me and I in you. And now he's saying, you abide in me and my words abide in you. And I think this is important because his words are his teaching. These are the words that he's trying to give to his disciples before he dies, and then he'll ascend into heaven. And see, these are our final words from Jesus. Let these remain in you. I mean, Jesus' relationship with them is as a rabbi. And so he's been teaching them for 3 years. So he wants his words to remain in them. So if we don't have Jesus' words remaining in us, we're not fully abiding in him. That's one of the ways we can abide in Jesus, is to know his words, to know what he's teaching us and what he wants us to do, the life he wants us to live. And he'll kind of tell us his commandment for us. So what are his words? And he'll tell us in a little bit, the commandment that he gives us. But even in chapter 14, what was his words? I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. Those are his words. And then he says, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. And these are always, I think, for me, tricky passages or verses to read. There's a handful of verses where Jesus says, ask whatever you wish, it'll be done for you. And I know of people who have been sick that I've prayed for and I've asked, and it wasn't done for me. But the next verse says, by this my Father is glorified. What God does will glorify him. And so I don't always understand when in certain prayers and certain requests, when I come to God, they don't get asked or get answered because I think it'll glorify him. But all things that glorify God are good. Everything that glorifies God is powerful and amazing things. And he says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. God is glorified by our fruit. I mean, if you think of that image up there with the grapes, you see that bundle of grapes, you don't even see the branch anymore. The branch is borne so much fruit that you can't even see it. But that's to you would think to the vine's testament. That vine is glorified by all that fruit it's bearing. What an amazing vine. That it can bear such a beautiful bundle of grapes. That the same reasoning is here, that Jesus is saying when you bear fruit, it glorifies God. It's just like how we are supposed to be God's light, the light of the world, that Jesus is the light of the world, and we are trying to reflect that now. We are trying to show people who Jesus is. That we are his ambassadors. We are the ones who represent Jesus. So our fruit glorifies God because people will see that and they'll hopefully see God and not us. That fruit points to the vine, not to the little branch. And that's how people will know we are his disciples. That's how people will know these are the disciples of Jesus. These people are different because of the fruit that we bear. And it's kind of just a natural outcropping, right? It's not, you have to bear fruit, and if you're not bearing fruit, if you're not doing good works, if you're not doing this, yada, yada. No, if we're abiding in Jesus, if we're following Jesus, we're going to bear fruit. Of course, then the question is, what is that fruit? What is fruit? What is the fruit that Jesus is talking about? It's kind of an analogy, right? So he's just saying fruit. So what do we think fruit is? First, I just want to think of fruit and just keep with that image. And, a lot of times it just gets connected to good works, which I think is a part of it. But what is fruit? Fruit is something that refreshes us. It's something that is enjoyable and nurtures us. It's got nutritious value. There's vitamins. There's healthy sugar in it. We eat fruit for a reason. And the things that we do, I think, do the same things. What can fruit look like? It can look like many things. I think growing up, it was always taught like fruit is the evangelism that you do. The people that you've brought into the faith, conversion. I think that's a fruit. I think evangelism is fruit. I also think fruit is the encouragement that you give to people, that you refresh their souls. I was just reading in 2 Corinthians, Paul writing to the Corinthians and saying that my soul is overjoyed because Titus came back to me and he was refreshed because he was with you guys. That's their fruit. Titus was refreshed from being with this church in Corinth that had gone through troubles and difficulties. And now Titus was overjoyed and just ready to get back on the road from visiting with them. And he brings that to Paul, and now Paul's overjoyed. I think that's the fruit that they bore at that church. It affected Titus, it affected Paul. So fruit can be, I think, look like many things. It can look like encouraging one another. It can look like loving one another. It can look like evangelism. It can look like acts of service. It can look like many things. And the way we know it's bearing fruit is because if it glorifies God. By this my Father is glorified. So then that's how we know if it's fruit. I was thinking about like what is some fruit that I've borne through the years, and I think preaching is a type of fruit. I don't want to put myself on a pedestal or anything like that, but I was like, Lord, what is some fruit? And I think teaching and preaching the word can be a type of fruit. Yet if any of my sermons didn't glorify God, then I don't think those were fruit. Then I think I missed the mark on that one. I think I didn't realize what I was doing. I don't think that was fruit that I've borne. So our fruit should be glorifying God. That's how we know it's fruit. And I think while reading this, I had two reactions. And I think these are the two reactions we should have. I think it should be convicting. It should convict us in some way. What is the fruit we're bearing? Because this is how we prove to be Jesus' disciples. This is how we glorify God, is through the fruit that we're bearing. Yet conviction shouldn't be a thing that makes us wallow, makes us, drown in self-pity. Oh, woe is me, I'm not doing anything for you, Lord. But I think conviction should spur us on and say, oh, I should be bearing fruit. I should be looking for opportunities to bear fruit. But I also think it's encouraging because we can look at the fruit that we've borne through the years and say, oh Lord, you have been bearing fruit through me. You have been guiding me. You've been walking with me and abiding in me. Because I can think of this thing or that thing, and not to make us, arrogant, not to make us prideful, to make us encouraged, to make us excited, to make us joyful. That we can see the fruit that He's born through us, and we can also be convicted to maybe try a little more, do more. It's, again, like I said, abiding's not exactly an action, but it's a two-way street, right? We abide in Him and He abides in us. So it's Jesus working through us. That doesn't mean we just sit around and do nothing. He says, what did He say? Go and make disciples. So it's not, oh, I just sit here and if something comes along, I'll do it, but I'm just going to sit here and wait. And maybe if God calls us to that, sometimes God says, wait. But as we're going through life, we can be bearing fruit. We can be encouraging. We can be loving. People will see that and see that it's different. So I would just say take heart, whether convicted or encouraged by that. That should spur us on, if it's either of the emotions. Let's look at verses 9 through 12. Jesus says, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in His love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So here we go. So what can fruit look like? As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. So now Jesus adds another layer to it. He said, abide in me, abide in my words, abide in my love. And I don't know if this is exactly what Jesus meant, but this is what it made me think initially. is that there's two ways, I think, as Christians, we learn and grow with Jesus. And when he said words and love, the two ways I think of is knowledge and experience. I think those are both a part of the Christian walk. And that might not be what Jesus is getting at right here. So I might be extrapolating too much, so you can throw this out if it's a Jesse thought and not a God thought. But through the Christian walk, there's knowledge. We have his word. Jesus has taught us things. We learn through that. Yet we also experience God's love. Love isn't just a knowledge thing. It's an experience as well. There's a feeling behind it. And so through that experience, it can be understood with knowledge. I don't think that the two should ever be broken apart. I think they should be intertwined together. And so as we're abiding in Jesus, we're learning about him through his word, and we're experiencing him through his love. And those together, I think, is how we have a healthy relationship with Jesus. That we just don't take the experience and we go off with that. I'm going to learn a bunch from this experience. But we don't just take the knowledge and say, I'm only going to learn and I'm not going to experience anything. I think the two get intertwined, and that's how Jesus grows us. That's how God makes himself known to us. We have his word, and we also have a personal relationship with him. And so he says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. So how are we supposed to abide in his love? Keep his commandments. He's been keeping God's commandments this whole time, so he's been abiding in the Father's love. What are Jesus' commandments? Well, I mean, way back he gets asked, what are the greatest commandments? And he says, love God the Father with all your heart, mind, soul, and love your neighbor likewise. So there are some commandments. What does he tell his disciples? I am the way, the truth, and the life. And before that, way back in chapter 13, he says in verse 34, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. That's his commandment. So how do we abide in Jesus' love? Well, we love one another. We keep this commandment. And this is the same love that he's loved the Father with. He says, I've kept my Father's commandment, or if you keep my commandment, you will abide in my love, just as I've kept my Father's commandment, and abide in his love. The love that Jesus has for us is the same love that he has with the Father. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. That's pretty incredible. That's why he went to the cross for us. Because he loved us. And he wants us to abide in him. He wants us to bear fruit. He wants us to be a part of the kingdom of God. So he went to die on the cross for us. And if we do this, our joy may be full. Our joy may be full. And it doesn't mean all the time. I mean, there's plenty of times, right, where my joy isn't full. But that's probably a me problem and not so much a Jesus problem. There's a lot of things in life that's, an us problem and not a Jesus problem, but Jesus wants us to be full of joy. So he wants us to abide in him. And so I think sometimes we can get, or at least I can get in this mindset. It was like, well, that's on me. That's my problem. I got to fix that. And Jesus is like, well, yes, you are the one who's in the problem, right? You are the one who's at fault. Yet you're not alone to fix this. You're not the one to fix this. I am the one to fix this. And so then our joy may be full. And I've known some very joyful brothers and sisters in the faith. And I've known days when they're not joyful. But that joy is almost it kind of catches on. It's like a cold. It's you just can't, when you're around those people who are that joyful, you just want to be joyful too. Or if you've had a really bad day, you want to be pessimistic, which I've had too. But that is their joy. That's Jesus' joy through us. And so his commandment, verse 12, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. That's his commandment. That's what he wants us to do. That sounds really simple, yet it seems so difficult a lot of the time. And love looks like a lot of things, but when I'm reading this, what I think of is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, when Paul defines love. He says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it does not insist on its own way, it does not delight in wrongdoing, it bears all things, endures all things, hopes all things. That wasn't the exact correct order. I switched things around a little bit, but that's what love is. Love is patient. Love is kind. How do we love? We be patient. We be kind. We don't insist on our own way. We don't delight in wrongdoing. We endure all things. We hope all things. We bear all things. We hope all things. And so that's what love looks like. The patience and kindness, I think, was always something for me growing up that was really difficult. But this insisting on your own way is something I think about more and more. And what I really think it means, that doesn't mean we can't ever, say like, if you are doing a job and you're really good at your job and you know that this is the best way to do something and someone comes along and they want to do it differently and you know that you've seen people do it that way before and it's going to fall apart and you don't want to, it's going to make things worse, and you start insisting on your own way and you think, wow, this isn't love. I'm insisting on my own way. I don't think that's exactly what it means. What Paul was talking to, he was talking to the Corinthians who were fighting a lot, and they had some arrogance and some pride issues. And so he's trying to tell them, and I think the church, is that we're supposed to be not insisting on our own way if it's filled with pride and it's I want to do this way because it's my way. But we're supposed to be doing it God's way. We're supposed to be following his way. And so that's what I think love looks like. But there's another way we can look at love, and Jesus tells us what kind of defines love for us in verse 13. Let's look at verse 13. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friend. There it is. There's love. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down their life for a friend. He's going to do that. He's just about to go to the cross. It's mere hours from when the guards will come and Judas will betray him, and then he'll be crucified. This is the greatest love. And in some ways, that sounds really difficult. In other ways, I could see myself doing it, but I don't want to die. It's not exactly a thing I want to do. Yet, to die for your friend seems doable. But that's also me talking not in the moment. But Jesus, he's going to do it. And it's not an easy decision. We see that Jesus says, prays to the Father, Father, take this cup from me, if it is your will. If it is your will. So it's not an easy thing to do. Yet Jesus has this greater love for us, that he will do it. And then he follows up with verse 14, which growing up was always a funny verse. You are my friends if you do what I command you. And as a kid, that always seemed funny because there's plenty of kids I knew growing up, that's kind of how they would talk, right? They'd be like, oh yeah, we can be friends, but this is how we play, and this is this, and this, and this. And no, you can't do that, and you can't do this. And I was like, well, I don't really want to be your friend. You're telling me everything to do. But in the case of Jesus, first he's just flipped it from him being a master and them being his servants, from him being the rabbi and them the disciples, the teacher, to now we are friends. We are on this deeper relationship. But you can't be my friends if you're not doing this love. What did he command them? To love one another. And I think of it as just if I had a friend and I would invite them over to my house, and let's say they smoked a lot, and I told them I didn't really care about that, but don't smoke in my house. I don't want you to smoke in my house. It smells bad. It gets, ruins the furniture and whatnot. And every time they came over, they just kept smoking. They just didn't care. They didn't listen to me. I told you, don't do that. That's my commandment. Don't smoke in my house. And all they did was smoke in my house. Well, I wouldn't really want to be friends with them anymore. I'd probably kick them out eventually and say, you can't come over. You can't be in my house. Jesus is saying, you are my friends if you do what I command you. You are my friends. You are on this deeper relationship with me if you love one another, just as I have loved you. If you abide in me. And this is like the one commandment, really, that Jesus gives us, right? Many times he tells us to love one another. And sometimes I think people get the idea that Christianity is a bunch of rules, a bunch of do's and don'ts, and so we're like, no, it's not. It's a relationship. It's freedom. But there are some rules. That rule is love one another. That rule is love one another the way Jesus loved us. And there's some other commandments that we are given, but that is the greatest commandment. Love God the Father. So love God and then love one another. And so now he says, we are no longer servants. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, so that you will love one another. So Jesus is just making the point. We're not on this master-servant relationship. You're not this lower person, and you got to work your way up, and you got to pay off your debt. He said, no, we're friends. We are friends. Obviously, Jesus is greater than us because he's Jesus, but he is our friend. We are on this deeper relationship with one another, and he makes an interesting point, probably kind of more of a cultural point. The servant doesn't know what the master is doing. The servant just gets told what to do from the master from time to time. But Jesus says, everything that I know from the Father has been made known to you. So we can't be on this master-servant relationship because you know all that was made known to me. You are now on this same level of relationship. You can be in relationship with God the Father. You know what you need to be in relationship. We are friends now. Now, obviously, there are things we don't know, like when is Jesus coming back, and what's going on. A lot of questions about the spiritual realm, right? But Jesus' point here is that you are now friends because I have taught you what the Father wants you to know. And we didn't choose him. You did not choose me. I chose you. Now, there's there's a couple ways you can look at this. This is a passage that gets brought up from Calvinism or Arminianism, free will and not free will. When I read it, I just think of when Jesus went around collecting his disciples, he chose them all. It's a matter of fact. He said, you follow me and you follow me. He chose all his disciples. Is it really getting into that bigger theological question? I don't know. But Jesus chose them. I think Jesus also chooses us. But Jesus chose his disciples. But I choose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit. Jesus wants us to bear fruit. He wants them to bear fruit. And think about that fruit. The fruit that the disciples bore, the fruit that they did, they went and spread the foundations of the church and created. We are here today because of that fruit. So Jesus chose them with that in mind. He knew what kind of fruit they could bear. God knows what kind of fruit we can bear. And he can see way down the line that in 2025, we'd be sitting in this church because of that. And he can see that for every other church and every other person who's following Christ, that the fruit that others bear will have a ripple effect. And that ripple effect could turn into waves and oceans and cause massive change. But the fruit that they bore is why we're here today. And again, he reminds us, so whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you so that you will love one another. What's the point? Love one another. That's how we prove we're his disciples. That's how the world will know that he sent us. That's how we'll bear fruit, is if we love one another. And love looks like many things, as we've talked about. But so all that, he is the vine, we are the branches, we have to remain in Jesus. He will remain in us. The fruit we bear will glorify God. These things I command you so that you will love one another. He wants us to love one another. He doesn't say hate one another. He doesn't say be cordial to one another. He doesn't say just get along with one another. He says no, love one another. And that word love is the word agape. And agape is the deeper love in Greek. In Greek, there's a couple words. The most common you'll see is agape and phileo. Phileo is like a friendship. I love you in kind of a friendly way. Maybe the way we'd say, like, I like you or I get along with you. It's cordial. It's kind of formal. But the other word is agape, a word that's normally used for God's love for his people. And it's a more intimate love. It's a love that gets used for between a husband and a wife. It's a deep love. It's not just oh yeah, I love you. We've only got really one word for love in English, and you interpret it depending on the tone. You normally don't always use I love you for friends. And at least growing up when we would say that, I'd be like, whoa, okay, weird dude. But love is a deep and important word. And here, it's that deep, it's that intimate, it's that personal. He really cares about us. He loves us. So, what are some things we can take away from this? I like to phrase them as things we can remember. I think remembrance leads to application, because if we can remember something, we'll find situations it can apply to. And it seems my ink ran out on my notes, so I can't see my application points, so that's kind of funny. But Jesus is the true vine. That's pretty straightforward. That's the point Jesus makes again and again. He is the vine, and we are the branches. We can't forget that. We can't forget that our dependency, our life, literally relies on being connected to Jesus. It's not just, I like Jesus. I get along with Jesus. I hear about Jesus every now and then. I think he's a good teacher. I think there's maybe good morals. No, he is our life, our eternal life. He's the reason we live. So he can't just be a side thing in our life. He can't just be an addition. He can't just be something we tack on. He has to be the center. And so I say that just to remind myself, how often is Jesus the center of my life? How often is Jesus my true vine? How often do I forget that? How often do I not pay attention to that? So I think that's something we need to remember. And I think it's good to think about our fruit, the fruit that we're bearing. How are we doing as Christians? It's just a way to sit down with God and pray to him. What is my fruit, Lord? And maybe what's fruit that I've missed? What is maybe some bad fruit that I've borne? But what is the fruit that I've been bearing, and how do you want me to bear more fruit? I've been thinking about that with the baby on the way. We're 3 weeks away, 20 days, 20 days, or 19 days away from the due date. I can do math. 19 days away from the due date. And part of our fruit in me and Allie's lives going forward is going to be, how do we raise our children? How does she grow? And so I think it's important to think about that. And so finally love one another, right? That was Jesus' whole point at the very end. I command you, love one another. That's what we're supposed to do. So I think we need to not forget he is our true vine. And we should also think about our fruit. How can we be bearing more fruit? What is fruit that we've borne? Be convicted, be encouraged. But then finally, love one another. Be patient, be kind. Do not envy, do not boast. Don't insist on our own way. Don't delight in wrongdoing. Let us endure all things and believe all things and hope all things together. Would you pray with me? Father, I thank you for this day again. I thank you for the chance to learn about you and learn about your word. Father, I pray that you are the true vine in our lives, Lord. That we don't forget this, that we don't turn away from this, that we don't take it for granted, that we live like you are the true vine and we are the branches. Let us not forget that. Let us not just kind of throw that idea away. Let us truly live like that, Lord. I pray that we can love one another because of that. I pray that we can bear fruit because of that. I pray that we can have joy because of that. I pray that we can take heart that we are branches connected to the true vine. And I pray that also spurs us on and we take it seriously because you're the true vine. That's a big deal. So pray for all those things. In Jesus' name, amen.